Whenever you're ready, Harry, kick off.
Start off with Nobby. How's Kieran Gill doing after missing the Halifax game?
All right. He probably won't be ready for this week, but we're hopeful he'll be ready for next week.
Obviously, Bailey Lou stepped in. Do you think he managed to do enough to convince you that he's worth a starting berth going forward?
Well, that's a bigger question. In the long term, we've got a lot of good players. He's certainly played well enough to get selected again this week.
Looking back, great win obviously in terms of local West Yorkshire derby. You dug deep defensively to get the 12-8 victory. Is the feeling still one of delight after the game? You were clearly very happy.
Absolutely. I don't know if delight's the right word. It's what professional sport brings. You know, the win and loss scenario sometimes is overplayed, but it was an important game. We needed to first and foremost compete and understand what we were trying to do, and then secondly to get a result, and we did both.
How important, I know it's early days, but games against teams like Halifax who have started very strongly, and Oldham this Friday, how important is it to almost make sure they don't get too far out of sight early doors?
Yeah, I think we're in a good position, but they'll think the same. You know, the Championship's a tough competition. You've just got to look at the results at the start of the year that exemplifies that. So I'm looking forward to Friday. I think it's another exciting game. I was really looking forward to last week's game at Halifax. I'm equally as interested to see what we come up with this weekend.
How much can a win like against Halifax give confidence to the team?
I'm not sure it's confidence. I think it's just a reinforcement of the ability we know that the team possesses. And it wasn't 4 weeks ago we were talking about gloom and despondent. Well, certain people were talking about being gloomy and despondent about a few losses. But you've got to treat both those things as imposters, because they are. You know, it's about your form and who's playing well and what you've got in the team. And that's always our mantra. And it's standing by us at the moment. We've had to play tough on a couple of occasions to get a result, but that's the vagaries of this division at this time of year. We're going to have to be tough again on Friday and play a little bit more football.
You've obviously won at Featherstone and Fax and can make it 3 wins on the bounce at Oldham. What is it about the away games at the minute? You seem to be enjoying them.
I'm confident we've only lost once at home as well. I don't think it's about, one of the mantras that we have is any field, anywhere. You have to play well. But they've got, I think, an unbeaten record at home, Oldham. I think that's right. Could be wrong there. And so we're going to have to be good to get a result.
Have Oldham at all shocked you, obviously? 10 points,
No,
I think
not
they're on
at all.
second in the league.
Have a look at their roster. Have a look at their roster and where they've all come from. So any smart, cute cookie will understand that they're a good team.
Are they almost a good example to follow? They won 19 out of 20 games last season, come up and they've started winning consistently in the Championship as well. In terms of winning and gaining momentum, are they a decent example to follow?
No, I don't think you can look at examples like that. You've got to look at yourself, and we've done little bits and bobs of runs here, there and everywhere, but I've got enough common sense to not follow anybody else's ideals. We do it our way.
Finally, Nobby, in terms of injury news, is there anything else to update us on?
No, everybody's where they were and how it was.
Brian, obviously you've mentioned how pleased you were with that defensive solidity against Halifax on Good Friday. What was the most pleasing aspect of that defensive solidity?
We defended well. That's what I'm trying to do. I thought our goal line integrity was great. You know, we had 3 knockouts, 3 back-backs. We've been conceding tries and kicks. The guys clearly took on board that, although there was a ricochet and a Dufresne one, was it avoidable? I don't know. But the rest of it, you know, the try savers on the try line and the bat outs and the fact that we're prepared to back ourselves to go again was really, really pleasing.
And you must be really pleased with your team's ability to defend that narrow lead, which hasn't always been the case. Which does that kind of highlight progress for you, learning?
Perhaps. I think our learnings from this last weekend is we're still damaging ourselves unnecessarily. We kicked the ball out on the full 4 times. We gave 2 7 agains. We dropped the ball in some ridiculous situations. So once we tidy up what we're trying to do, and once we get that message, I think we'll be an even better team.
When listening back to your post-match comments, you highlighted the importance, that impact, that experience, that energy off the interchange bench. How important is it to you then that you get that sort of squad team management right when deploying those players at the right opportune time to come into a game as intense and, you know, physical as that derby against Halifax, so that you get the very best out of them?
It's becoming quite an art for all coaches. You know, you're utilising what you've got on the bench to add something to your team, or to take something you've been doing badly away from your team to improve that kind of area. The bench is very, very important these days, and anybody that's picked on the bench shouldn't be looking at their 1 to 13 jumpers. They should be thinking 1 to 17s. I've got a chance to make a great impact here, and it is important what you do with your substitutions.
And when you see people like Aribi Doro, Franklin Pelly-Jordan, Lily all coming off that bench, bringing that energy, what do you think that says about that sort of squad depth that you've got here, Brian?
We've recruited well, and it's important that whoever plays in our team brings energy. Now sometimes it's hard to create, but the kind of people we've got on the bench bring energy naturally, you know, and that's palpable, and you can see that from the sidelines, and that's massively important. That's why they're here.
I know Harry touched on it a little bit, but what do you think the significance of beating league leaders Halifax at their ground is, and what do you think that does for that sort of belief and confidence? Because it clearly was there for the full 80 minutes to you know, have a very strong performance.
I just think the scheme of things of how this team's growing, I'm not necessarily, I don't buy into going into away grounds and get a result. I understand the importance of it, but I also understand the bitter feeling in your mouth when you get beaten at home. It's, you know, you create your home to be an environment where it's difficult for teams to come, and Halifax have done that. It was a difficult place to go get a result, so you got to be good. Now we've got another one now this weekend, and so it's a fantastic challenge for us. We've got to back our efforts up.
With it being 3 games in all competitions, 1 on the bounce, Brian, do you feel that there is momentum building now?
I would hope so. I think, you know, we've played differently in all 3 games, and there's a message there, and the players are ready, they're energised, they're enthused. I think we understand the nature of the challenge. I think it's a different kind of challenge to last Friday's challenge, for all the reasons you've both highlighted, that, you know, that can we go somewhere and win somewhere and be whatever. I think we're going to have to play a little bit more this weekend, because we're playing a team that wants to play.
You've praised, and rightly so, the defence, but you have spoke of offensive improvements. Is that an area that you've focused the homework side of things on this week, Brian, in training?
Well, I think our players know what we should be doing. Not damaging ourselves would help. I think in the whole of the game last week, we only had what we would consider attacking moments, good ball sets, if you like, and we only had 4, I think, in the whole game, which is way, way, way too low. But that's because of what we were doing, and we can fix the things that we were doing, and so when we put the pieces of the jigsaw together, I'm pretty confident we're up there.
On reflection, when you analyse that attack last week, Brian, is there any sort of frustrations from you that despite having a lot of possession, a lot of momentum, that in that second half you were only able to come away with that Luke Hooley try and 6 points?
Well, you started the interview quite rightly on how difficult it is to go to Halifax and get a performance. And we went there and we had a performance as such, so we need to work on certain parts of our game for sure, but I'm no less delighted as I was after the game. You know, it was a terrific win, and which should give us confidence moving forward.
Ronan Michael, he's played in all 11 games so far, Brian. I think when you watch the full game back, you kind of notice just how much of a contribution he put into that performance on Good Friday.
Not on his own. The contributions from a lot of people. But he had a couple of highlight moments, if that's right. His pass for the try for Hooley was a terrific pass. His break just before that, on a tip on in and around the middle. So he's working hard at his game. He's studious, he's intelligent, and he picks things up. Does he have things to work on like all the other players do? Of course he does, and he's prepared to do that. I think that's the good thing about this team, is that they're still prepared to work hard.
Some might say beating, at that point, the unbeaten Halifax Panthers at the Shea was a statement win. How does that result, for you, Brian, internally here, shape your expectations going into this game against Oldham on Friday?
My expectations haven't changed about the season, about where we might be, about where we're going to. I'm confident that our expectations this week are to play well and to not damage ourselves as much as we did or tried to do against Halifax. And if we do that, we'll compete with anybody.
Is it fair to say it's simply about, like you said, learning from those mistakes, kicking out on the full, don't do it this week?
Well, just appreciating how hard the game is when you do those kind of things. And the game was real hard on Friday, made harder by ourselves, for ourselves. That's not a reflection of Halifax. Halifax were brilliant and have been brilliant all year. In many respects, they played without halves, which hampered them. But we've got to understand what's good for us and what's not good for us.
Oldham are clearly flying high this season, second in the table. What challenges are you anticipating from Sean Long's team on Friday night?
Well, Sean Long loves the game of footy. He loves an edge play. He was a half himself, so you've got to understand, with Drinkwater in their team, they're going to ask us some serious questions. They've got some big blokes in and around the middle, Dudson, the Chapelhouse, and so that they don't lack the ability to go forward. So this might be just one of those games again where it's the bounce of the ball or the player making a poor decision or a good decision that separates the teams. And I'm confident with that. I'm confident that we can go and compete, because I know that if we get anywhere near our best, we're a match for anybody.
Oldham, going into this game, similar to Bradford, they had a very tough, physical, intense game against Widnes. You had obviously a very tough physical game against Halifax. Do you think that helps both sides going into this game, knowing that this is going to be more of the same and they only experienced it 7 days previously? Yeah,
well, even Stevens, let's hope, we'd have both wished we were on a holiday beach in Barbados with some pina coladas, something away, but we don't. We had a couple of tough games apiece, so we have to get ready for that.
Oldham haven't lost at home since September 2023. How are you preparing the players to handle that intensity and, I guess, that potential hostility from another large crowd which will be at Boundary Park?
That's why we play. We play to create moments, and we've got a great chance to create another moment for ourselves. I understand they're unbeaten there, but records are to be broken. It's as simple as that. But it will all boil down to how we started this conversation. I think we're going to have to be better than last week, and I'm confident we will be. And I know that Oldham will have to be very, very good themselves to beat us.
Something we've not really focused on yet, Brian, but the players, when I speak to them after the games, seem to be aware, is they kind of acknowledge how opposition clubs still see the Bradford Bulls as a big target, having that big target on the back. So I'm kind of guessing, are you aware of that, or how do you ensure the players, kind of embrace that pressure, maintain that focus and stick to the game plan when you're playing a side that are like, this is the big Bradford Bulls coming, we fancy our chances, and confident of picking up a big win?
Yeah, it's a motivation for other teams for sure, and I've said it before, and I don't know if I've said it in this forum. The Bull shirt is a heavy shirt to wear because of that reason, and everybody that joins are made aware of that fact. But it's also a great shirt to wear. It has all of those elements of tradition and heritage and all the things, and has been successful itself. That's why people don't like it as much, because they've been the source of a lot of disappointment for other teams. We can't change that. We understand it's a heavy shirt, and you've got to be galvanised to wear it. but you should also be proud to wear it, and you should also understand that the great moments are capable for yourselves. Going through that kind of, well, is it pressure? No, it's a heavy shirt. So I'll go back to how I started this, and you have to accept that when you're playing it, and I think this group do.
I know you've already said Kieran Gill won't feature this weekend. What is the nature of the injury, Brian? And you've just said at the start he might be in contention for the Sheffield game.
Yeah, I think I'm hoping so. He started running again. He's had a knee injury, not as serious as we thought. So the great news is he's up on his feet and he's running around. It's how quickly he can get up to speed, and we're hoping that will be against Sheffield.
Is there any injury updates on George Tafu, Tom Holmes and Tyron? How close or far away are those three individuals?
They're a week closer than they were last week to getting back.
Fair to say, no chance.
No imminent. No, not imminent for either of those three.
Kind of guessing then it'll be a very settled team, probably minimal changes this weekend.
Yeah, that's about right.
I know we touched a bit on this, but how unlucky were Nathan Mason and Sam Hallis to miss out last week?
Very unlucky, but that's the nature of what we've got here. You know, we've got a couple of players that have close associations with us that are other clubs. If those other clubs are not using them, we have only a chance to bring them back. We had the opportunity to bring Aribi back, who's known to the group, so it's less of a chance, and so he came back. Would I do it again? Of course I would. But it is disappointing for Nathan Mason, whose improvement over the last few games everybody could measure. You know, he's got 2 tries last week and didn't make the mix. So Sam Hallis does for this club for a long time. He gives his heart and soul, his energy in and around the ruck, his energy to rest other players and give impact off the bench is terrific. So both of those players will certainly feature again.
Is there some validity, Brian, in that sort of performance bar that would get you in the team, the 17? It's gradually getting higher and higher as the season progresses.
That's the nature of the beast. I think it's undiscounted adding players to the team, so everybody has to perform. And yeah, part of the parcel of being successful is trying to keep everybody happy. Sometimes you can't do that, you know, and that's a good thing as well because of the competitive nature of people that want to play. They want to play, but as we explained, as if you've got your place and you've got a jumper, keep it, because we've got some people chomping at the bit to use that jumper and then prove that they're the ones that should stay in the team.
We've just had Luke Cooley sat in the hot seat, the chair.
Yeah, hot seat, is that what it is? I feel quite comfortable in this hot seat.
Obviously his initial 2-month loan will end next month, Brian. Luke's clearly expressed he'd potentially like to stay and hopefully be a part of a successful Bradford Bulls in 2025. Is there any movement on that at this stage, or is it still too early to say?
It's too early. I think Luke's enjoying it. We're enjoying Luke's performances. Yes, but it's too early. We've got another month, 5 weeks, 6 weeks of the deal. But it's certainly impressing me. And
similar to Jayden Okenbaugh and Franklin Pelly, I'm certainly picking up from what Luke's just said. You know, he has had a tough 2 years in the Super League. You know, being loaned here, loaned there, loaned everywhere, and he does certainly appear to be enjoying his rugby here again.
Good, because that's what we wanted him to do, and that's why he came here. The Super League can be a tough nut to crack, and sometimes you need to take a little bit of a step back with an ambitious club that understands what you've got and what you haven't got. He's going good, and if he continues to go good, he'll attract attention from a few places, let alone ourselves.
Just a couple of news on some of the younger players. Sam Ackroyd's joined Keighley on a season-long loan, Brian.
Yeah.
How much of an opportunity is that for Sam Ackroyd to work under Alan Kilshaw and Keighley in what is a competitive League One environment?
Yeah, it's a great opportunity. You know, we scratch our heads here, and we've got some good players who need a better standard of rugby than our reserves. You know, that's not demeaning the reserves in any way, shape or form, but it's self-explanatory. And Keighley's competitive, they're competitive. I think it's a great opportunity for him. We have the the ability to drag him back should we need him back. So we've got the recall in there, and I think the higher standard of football that all of our players that aren't playing can play. I think it's very important to keep them at the sharp end of their game.
And this is, of course, going to be beneficial for Sam's development, because he'll clearly have that appetite to eventually cause you headaches and problems,
Hope so.
and potentially make his first team debut in the house for the Bradford Bulls.
Yeah, hope so.
On Jamie Gill, he's at Dewsbury. Another strong performance, dominant win, and he also scored a try.
Yeah, I like Jamie Gill. He's not actually from a rugby league heartland. I think people should realise. I think he's a Barnsley kid, but I mean they play rugby league down. It's not too far away, but yeah, he applies himself, and I like what he does, and I like when he does it. But he's in a long line of we've got a lot of them at the moment, and a lot of them. We've got a lot of Jamie Gills. He's got a talent in his own right, but we've got a lot of front rowers that he'd have to displace here. So playing at Dewsbury is a fantastic outlet for him.
And on Cameron Bate, Brian, you must be absolutely delighted that he's signed his first sort of professional contract with the club, despite what I was told was Wigan were in, Warrington were in. There was a lot of Super League interest in for him.
Yeah, he's going to be a good player if he applies himself. He's got into the Lancashire Academy team as well, selected there. He's been impressive whilst he's been with us, and more importantly thinks he can be impressive moving forward and learn his trade here. So that's another tick in the box for the Bulls.
And just finally, Brian, kind of like a game-wide view, the RFL announced this week that the championship crowds are up 9.3%. We know there was a record share championship crowd for a Halifax championship game Friday gone. Do you put that down to how competitive, unpredictable the championship really is, that it has the fans, flocking in big numbers to these, championship club grounds, knowing that they're going to by and large get value for money?
Yeah, they're going to get a good game of football as well, aren't they? And I think it's a reflection on how good the championship is. I think there are a lot of clubs with ambition this year. So whilst we've had 3 and 4 previously, we've had a standout. We've always had a standout, somebody that's prepared to be full-time and be in there with a view to getting back out of there. I don't think we've got that this year. I think we've got a lot of teams that can beat each other on their day. And I think that's why people are going. I think we've got a couple of teams that are showing their wares, and all of the things that you're getting in exciting league ladder we're getting with this championship.